The world of business is more complex than ever. The world of human resources and compensation is also getting more complex. Welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast, your direct source for the latest trends from experts inside and outside the world of human resources. Listen as we explore the impact that compensation strategy, data, and people analytics can have on your organization. This podcast is sponsored by Salary.com, your source for data, technology, and consulting for compensation and beyond. Now, here are your hosts, David Turetsky and Dwight Brown.
Hello and welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast. I'm your host, David Turetsky, alongside my co-host, best friend, partner in crime from Salary.com, Dwight Brown. Dwight, how are you?
David Turetsky. I am wonderful this morning. How you doing?
I am okay, but I'm outstanding now. Do you know why?
Tell me.
Because we have with us a guest who we have already had so much fun in the pre-podcast. We were laughing, hooting, hollering. We were enjoying ourselves. Amri B. Johnson, how are you today?
I am wonderful, and we did have some fun. I hope we can continue it.
I hope so too.
Oh, we will.
Amri, could you give us a little bit of your background and about how you got to this point in your career?
Sure. I'll start kind of way back. I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a public health guy, I'm a writer, author, epidemiologist, spiritual cultivator, entrepreneur, uncle, husband, father of three. I have one son and two bonus twins, and I'm living in my third country of residence. I live in Switzerland, in Basel. 4 languages spoken in my home daily at our dinner table, and I speak about 1.75 of them.
1.75.
It's the average. I'm American, and I at least don't just speak one of them. So I'm passionate about creating cultures from the hearts of individuals, cultures that get better from challenges and stressors because they have the relational fitness to do so.
Wow. So you're a Renaissance guy, ostensibly.
Oh, I've had people tell me what that word, and I'm like, there's other dark sides of my personality that might not make me so Renaissance. If you want to give me that,
well, we've already talked about the fact that you are related to Darth Vader. So there's that.
And Darth taught you to rake leaves.
Darth taught you to rake leaves.
He did. In all of his regalia, in 95 degree Fahrenheit weather.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am your father.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's awesome. But that was not, by the way, that was not counted as the one fun thing that no one knows about you.
I struggled with this. Before I became where I am today, running my company Inclusion Wins here in Switzerland. Before I was an epidemiologist, before I got into the space that we call inclusion, or what a lot of people have been calling DEI for the past few years. I spent a lot of my early career, entrepreneurial career and public health career, probably focused more on my spiritual growth, at least as much, if not more, on my spiritual growth than my entrepreneurial skills and business development skills. And I wrote a book on work-life balance. That was my first book. I self-published it. It was only an ebook. And it was a book on work-life balance based on Confucian principles. And so that's something that a lot of people don't know, at least not until, my door gets banged down by another publisher to relaunch my ebook. But to date, not a lot of people know that. Except for about 1,000 people bought it, though. So,
oh, wow.
I don't know if they remembered it or not, but yeah.
That's a respectable number.
Yeah, it was pretty good. For self-published, I was pretty excited.
Yeah. Wow.
I found out that my friend Dwight actually published a book similarly a while ago.
And forgot that he did it.
And he forgot that he did it. So
I forgot. The thing sucked so bad that I just kind of pushed it out of my...
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to pump both of them up to the New York Times bestseller list by including them in the show notes. So
works for me. I don't even know if I need to repost it then. So yeah, just let me know.
Well, yeah, let me know if you have a link to it somewhere.
Okay.
Because sometimes in self-publishing, they're not listed in Amazon. They're listed somewhere else.
Yeah. That was before Amazon was really popular. So if
oh,
I
my
would have
Lord.
known
So we're
what I
talking
know
about the
now,
1970s, 1980s, or?
it was in the 90s.
Oh, it was in the 90s.
Oh,
Okay.
there we go.
Actually,
Okay.
No. It was in
I was really
actually
far
the
off.
early 2000s.
Okay.
It was in the early 2000s, and I never put it on a Amazon platform, but
Wow.
I think I could republish it and update it if people were interested. It's a project that I've thought about for a long time. Yeah.
So for people who don't know, there's a thing called KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing. And it's a very easy way of being able to self-publish books and manuscripts. And so, Amri, I'm sorry, I keep getting it wrong.
It's okay.
I really apologize.
My wife has a really thick French accent, and it comes out in a lot of different ways. So I'm trying to I live in a
depending
country
how
that
bad she is.
Well, yeah. Well, hopefully I'm your friend at some point. So I got to get it. So
yeah.
But
she's my wife, David. I mean, come on. But go ahead. Yeah.
I'm not going to get in between the two of you. I'm smarter than that. It hasn't shown it so far today, but I'm smarter than getting in between two people. Won't do it. Or not lately. So today's topic is one that we have talked about a lot on the HR Data Labs podcast, but not in this way. And one of the things that's scary, if you have been paying attention to what's happening in the United States, is that organizational cultures are shifting at a breakneck pace to try and flee what they consider to be a more toxic version of what we've all taken for granted, which is that people should care about each other or at least include them. So today's topic is inclusion in creating anti-fragile organization cultures where people actually have agency. They can think and act interdependently, and they're actually rewarded for their relational skills as much as their technical ones. And that enables their colleagues to do better work and thrive while fulfilling the organization's mission and culture together. So, what is on your mind about all this? Because that's really huge. That's really a large undertaking.
Hey, it's Libby DeLucian. If you're sick of business advice that sounds cute, but doesn't actually move the needle forward, this one's for you. The Libby DeLucian podcast is where we go one layer deep. No gurus, no glitter, just straight up unfiltered talk about scaling a business, running a household, and holding on to your sanity in the middle of the chaos. If you're the bottleneck in your business or in your own life, I'll show you how to fix it. Simple, tactical, and one layer deep every time. Let's go. Visit libbyd.com and check out our podcast today.
It is. And, what's on my mind right now is I think what we're dealing with that's kind of coming out of the U.S., where a lot of diversity and inclusion practices have come out of the U.S., and a lot of them were based on paradigms of old. And so what's on my mind is I think we need to ask ourselves the question, given where we are and what the current tenor of the work many call DEI is, whether they believe in it or are completely against it, we need to think about what's possible now that it's been framed in a way that for most people, they don't fully understand it. A lot of people are in support of it. Some people are neutral and some people are totally against it, and they might always be, but not necessarily for the reasons why we think they're against it. So what do I mean by that? I think the past probably 3 to 4 decades, we've been really focused on paradigms of the past, which were more restorative justice or reparative justice rather, and kind of an anchoring on social justice and civil rights paradigms of the 1960s and into affirmative action of the 70s.
Right.
And as things evolve, you have to shift the paradigms, and I don't think we did. And so for the past 5 years, after Floyd, after pandemic, we've moved into this place where we've actually, when we were trying to reduce us and them, we've in a way recreated it. And it wasn't intentional, but I think it was the byproduct, the trade-off, if I may, of not really being thoughtful about what we wanted to create together. And so now I believe, given that, we can go in a different direction. We don't have to reduce it. We can make this approach to inclusion, or what we call inclusion in organizations, accessible to everyone. We can prioritize it appropriately, and we can align it with who the organization aspires to be in their mission and purpose. So that's where I think we are, and I think we're starting to move, but we can't spend all our time mad at, politicians, because politicians will be politicians.
Well, I don't know. They've given us a lot of reason to be mad.
No doubt.
Like focusing on wrong things, or trying to start fights with our partners, or trying to embrace people who bring out the worst in the rest of us, doing just absolutely mind-bogglingly stupid things, and couching them in the "we've gone too far" and this woke culture baloney, whatever is what's to blame. Really?
We know that's silly. It's silly. It's dishonest, and they wouldn't even know what DEI was if we had done this in a way that was more in alignment with what I think we could have been doing. And I talked about this a lot in Reconstructing Inclusion, and I'm not, kind of acquiescing to that kind of toxic behavior, because if people decide they want to take that tenor and that kind of signaling by the administration, and a lot of people that believe in that administration, they'll see, you've seen those memes, F around, find out.
Yeah.
I think, well, I think they'll find out that if you anchor and allow people to have behaviors that actually reduce people's desire to want to come to the office, reduce people's creativity, the office that everybody wants you to come to now, by the way, you have people constantly complaining about these behaviors that we have labeled as toxic. We can label them as uncivil. And just generally people just like check out. They might even check out and stay. I don't know what's worse, checking out and leaving, or checking out and staying.
Probably the latter. Probably the latter, because it's destructive.
If you want that and you want to pay the cost of that, it's something that you can't see immediately. But if you see some of the signals of it, and you decide not to do anything about it, good luck. Find out.
Right.
But so I guess when I say not focus on silly politicians, they're not going to stop doing what they're doing. Why do we need to focus on what we need to do now? That's kind of where I am, because politicians have always been politicians. Some of them I have agreed with in part. Most of them I haven't. And I'm going to keep on moving so we can do this in a way that makes sense to companies, not just because it's, feels good. It actually makes good business sense.
Part of what I see with this is, and this is what to me makes it difficult, it's the polarity of thought.
Yeah.
It's the inability to meet in the middle on these things, and the inability to listen to divergent viewpoints.
Yeah.
It's just, somehow we've lost that. And I don't know where along the way we lost it.
Well, it's a loss of propriety, Dwight. I mean, we can't get along. I can't sit in a room and talk to people who are so biased in one way, because they don't want to hear from me. They're thinking I'm going to try and change their mind, and I'm not. I don't want to change their mind. I want to understand what they're talking about and see if I can relate to it, so that we can have a conversation.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm in the process of reading a book right now that I consciously decided to read this book, and it is one of those that's on a pole where it is very anti-DEI. It's very anti a lot of things. And I chose to read it because I wanted to kind of understand from the other side what that was. And I gotta say, reading it, it still makes me sick. And so I think this gets to exactly what we're talking about today. It's like, you get the two ends of the spectrum, and in the middle, they will never meet.
Yeah. I actually think Dwight, that it's brilliant, first of all, that you're willing to be influenced by the so-called other. You probably know people that hold those views of the people that wrote that book somewhere in your networks that will never articulate it.
Right.
And they're probably willing to be influenced by you in ways they don't see you as other. And I'm not just talking about because
Right.
you're a white guy. So just make sure, for some people are going to hear that as that. I'm talking about
exactly.
because of what you do, where you work, your reputation, your expertise, what you've accomplished, what people know you for, right? Who you are, right?
Yeah.
And that willingness, I actually think there are more reasonable people than people on those polls.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people don't agree with that, but part of me has to say, if we don't believe that that's possible, we'll never find those folks that are willing to at least go back and forth.
Right.
And at the same time, Dwight, we can acknowledge, and as a practitioner of what we call DEI, I can acknowledge that, one, some of the things that have gone on have gone too far. So what are people really mostly railing against? They're railing against the dynamics that have happened across the trans community, particularly with children.
Yeah.
They're railing against so-called wokeness and feeling like they can't say what they want to say, when they want to say it, and how they want to say it, which none of us can and never have been able to. But the way that it was policed for particular types of standpoints and wording, that it just wasn't helpful. It actually kept people from maybe even getting the feedback from good faith actors as well as they could have. And three, the idea that we can't come together to work on something across differences when we have the right conditions to do it. I see that happen all the time, and we haven't been deliberate about it, and we haven't always been deliberate about building the skills so people can do it over and over and over again, even if we have some type of diametrically opposed view politically.
Right.
I think the humanity of us is a lot more intact than the media would allow us to believe.
Yeah.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking subscribe. This podcast is made possible by Salary.com. Now, back to the show.
Well, why don't we pivot to the second question, because we're going to be exploring all those things when we hit this, which is, what direction do you think the diversity and inclusion industry needs to take after all of this anti-DEI sentiment?
I think we need to, group identity has been the biggest thing. We've been focused on group identity, and obviously for the past few years, it's been mostly on racialized or racial identities. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of reduces people, even whatever identity, group identity it might be, it reduces people to a what?
Right.
We can talk about box checking all we want to, but it can reduce people and flatten people when we know people are multidimensional, at least 4D. I've been rewatching that book, Flatlands. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but it's really fascinating. It talks about the 2 and the 3D world, and then it gets a little bit into the 4D world, but it's quite fascinating. Mm-hmm. It's a really good kind of metaphor for where we are today, that we've really focused on people as being really 2D. And we're at least, or even 3D with what we can see, but what people are is really more than the dimensions that you could ever see. Mm-hmm. And we need to focus more on who people are, not just what.
Right.
So get them out of the box and into something more complex, because that's who we are. I think that's one. 2, we talk about belonging a lot. And I'm all for belonging. It's a feeling, it's a sense that we should have, that we can come and go and we're valued for who we are. Right. But I think what's talked about less is mattering. So you talked and introduced the concept of agency, David. When you matter, we don't talk about this as much, but we talk around purpose and meaning. We talk about agency and significance, but we don't always build that into how we develop people. How do we develop people who are in influential positions in our organization? We can call them leadership. We can call them whatever. So valued for people is the baseline, for who they are, for value for what you contribute. I think is the scaffolding that allows people to keep holding on. I have a metaphor for that when I was talking to my buddy the other day, I talked about. He started rock climbing at 41. And so now he's like at V8. I think there's 16 levels. So he's moved up to V8. He's 53 and he's at V8 and he's climbing. So he shows me these videos. He lives in Georgia, And he shows me these videos where he's hanging on to 30 millimeters of a boulder, like
Wow.
upside down, with his feet in splits on 25 millimeter pieces. And I'm like, how in the world is he doing this? But he keeps finding the next boulder to get better on. And I think that's what mattering is like to me, is we keep finding the next boulder and we keep giving people that next problem. They call it boulders problems, that next problem that can allow you to have that mattering. And I think that level of development, people want that as much as anything. And I think when you do that consistently and you develop the skills to do that for all of your people, you know, some people aren't going to be able to go to a V16 or a V4,
Right. Sure.
but
Yeah.
they're going to be able to make the contribution that they can make where they can make it. And some people are going to naturally continue to get better. And we need them all. And sometimes it's not the right place. You might need to go a place where they know of other boulders that you can climb so you can leave, but leave feeling like you mattered, even though it might not be that you're going to continue to make contributions at that organization. And we need to reward people for being able to teach folks how to boulder to the next level, as well as when to know when to go on to another place where there's new boulders.
Well, but to that, and I love that metaphor, by the way. And I was laughing because the other guy over here, Dwight, he loves jumping off of boulders. We're not going to focus on that. But the thing that bothers me a little bit about this is that people, in order to be able to feel and believe in the agency that you have, a lot of people have imposter syndrome, and they just can't create that agency in their mind where they believe that they should be, or they should ask,
Right.
or they should climb that boulder. They're worried about that boulder falling on them. They're worrying about that next step, or that next, hammering that whatever that thing is called into the fissures, because they're worried about that next hammer hit. That fissure becomes the thing that breaks the boulder.
Right.
And so I listened to you talk about how people should matter, but there's so many tenuous relationships we have with our job. I'm worried about people making that feeling be the reason why they don't matter, or they don't feel like they matter, and that they can't ask for that next boulder.
Yeah. That's obviously an issue. And that's why I think where relational fitness comes in, because you can't get people even up to a boulder to even face it unless they know that you care. Like, why would I want to go climb on something where I can fall off from 2 meters or from 6.5, 7 feet up on my back? No, there's usually a pad down there, but it still hurts. Right.
Well,
and so if people, you're going to ask people to climb these boulders and to make that attempt, they need to know that you care. They need to know that you're open and willing to be influenced by them. They need to know that they are safe, that you're there to spot them.
Right.
And that takes, some people do not have those skills. And I believe if you want to prevent either people from not climbing the boulders that your organization needs to do its best work, or climbing and falling once and deciding they're not spotted and they're never coming back, you need to develop that sense of safety and what that looks like to every single person. We can call it psychological, we can call it sociological, we can even call it kind of emotional. However you want to call it on a safety spectrum, we need that. And then, of course, we need trust. And I often talk and have used this with some clients around the 4 levels of trust by Louise Diamond. First of all, I know that I'm safe with you. That's my baseline trust. You're not going to harm me, and we are interdependent in a way. The second one is you understand my interest. The third is you're going to advocate for my interest. And then the fourth is you're going to advocate for my interest even when I'm not around. So building those I call that the cost of inclusion. But the idea is you have to build skills to get there, and you have to do it with people. It can't be something that's done deductively, like, oh, this is a theory, let me go put it into practice. You have to put it into practice and then see what works for each unique individual in your organization, and not make any assumptions that what you do is actually what they need. And so to me, if you want to reward something in the future, reward people's capacity to create that capability for themselves and for the organization on a consistent basis. And I know not every organization is there, but anybody that has big influence needs to take into consideration caring, first of all, because that's where all the interdependence starts. And most the newer, I'd say, leadership frameworks all talk about interdependence. But do we measure for it? Because there is measurement. Do we actually assess for it? Do we train for it? Do we get people ready to do that regularly? Because in my opinion, with the world we're in now, you can call it VUCA, you can call it BANI, whatever you want to call it. Those skills, they're just as important, if not more important, than the technical ones, in my opinion, in my experience too.
How do we build that at scale? Is that a leadership quality that you're training? Is it a cultural? Meaning, is it something that a company needs to adopt as being one of their philosophical and mission, vision, value statements? We care about our people. We trust in our people. We support our people, and then actually live it by being able to show that people can fail and not lose their jobs.
I think you definitely have to build the capacity, but you have to make it, you have to have some skin in the game on it. Because because there's been a lot of diversity stuff that's been out there, and people are told they must do this, thou must do this in diversity, or we let go, versus like, look, these are skills that we know, and that there's enough evidence that supports that when you do that, you just get more from your people and they perform better and teams work better. And I think companies should make it a part of their organizational design. So you can call that in your values and principles, or you can call it in your strategy. I think I would call it in my strategy. I put it in there because we believe that that level of relational fitness and the relational skills actually allows people to do better work. Kind of at that point, the other piece for me is it's important that to both evaluate for it, but also to understand this notion of leadership. And you guys are probably familiar with Peter Singe's definition of leadership. Leadership is the capacity for a human community to shape its future. And so the idea is that leadership is not an individual attribution towards a number of people that happen to have more power in organizational life. It's a relational construct, just like inclusion, that everybody's there to shape the future of the organization. Every single person needs these skills. And so at scale, it's not one time or two times. It's introduce these concepts, put them in people's kind of purview and say, let's talk about what that looks like in action every day, not just the training, but here are the principles. What does it look like? Here are some frameworks that can help you, and then put some things into practice, see what's working, because you just don't know. Like inclusion is a lot of things. The outcome is always the same. People thrive and the organization contributes value beyond just the bottom line.
The way that, what goes through my head with this is, as a leader, you have to realize that so much of this is fear-based. And, I'm afraid that I won't matter. And that theme kind of goes no matter where you sit on the spectrum of things. And so doing what you were talking about, and also going after the fear, going after whatever it is that's creating the fear in people's minds, and being able to be a leader through the fear. Because being a leader, that's a lot of what you do is getting people past their fears.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I would. I think it's getting people over their fear of loss of something.
Right.
And I think if you think about this in terms of experimentation, a lot of people don't do stuff because they're scared they're going to fail.
Exactly.
Right. Yes.
If I was scared to fail, like, I would be done, because I've done a whole lot of it.
Right.
Like, I just did it a few hours ago. I've done it all year, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't create, but I work for myself, so my fear is a little bit different. My fear is my business going to be successful, or am I going to be able to feed my kids, right? But But it's still a fear. I think everybody has that fundamental fear. Am I going to lose something that allows me to not be able to live my life, as comfortably as possible, or at least safely as possible?
Right.
And so I think that's part of the caring part. When you care about something, you don't want them to be scared. You want them to know, like, look, if you fail, I fail. We all have to move it through this together.
Right.
Let's talk about it as quickly as possible.
Right.
Because failure is inevitable. It's, can we recover from it when it's the most challenging times? Or does a person that has a high managerial level automatically collapse with people rather than say, all right, here are the parts of what happened. Some of these parts we don't need. Let's continue to build on the ones that we do.
Right.
And we
learning from it.
We can move quickly.
Yeah.
Because the fear is we just needed some evidence that what we were doing was working or not, or how it was working and what we need to adjust.
Right.
And that, to me, that's it's always there. But if your goal is to create the future, it's part of the path.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think you can ever succeed without having failure as part of what you have or what you do.
It's part of your success. And
exactly. Yeah. It gives you
every
that grounding.
Hero journey story you've ever heard.
Exactly.
Let's go to a movie theater and see if we can actually see a movie that doesn't have failure as being one of the underlying tenets of it.
Right.
And how many Shakespeare's. Hey, are you listening to this and thinking to yourself, man, I wish I could talk to David about this? Well, you're in luck. We have a special offer for listeners of the HR Data Labs podcast. A free half-hour call with me about any of the topics we cover on the podcast or whatever is on your mind. Go to salary.com/HRDL consulting to schedule your free 30-minute call today. But I think what we're going through now is really, though, to what Dwight was talking about. It's the fear that, and again, fear is hard to overcome. It's the fear of being part of an organization and it starts to change and the leadership starts to provide different messaging and you all of a sudden feel like you're on an island, not supported, and you look around and you say, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Why am I here? Because now in the environment that we're in, we don't feel as supported. We don't feel that messaging anymore. Mm-hmm. And how do we move that forward? I know it's a tough one.
No, I had a colleague that was going through a really hard time and she just felt completely ostracized. And she came to me to talk about this. And she told me the story of, really what was going on. And we got to the heart that a lot of the way she was engaging, she was actually right. But rightness has never transformed anything. So she was right in her stance, right?
Sure.
But we really talked about how are people really focusing on relationships the way that they can in organizations? Because when CEOs signal stuff, a lot of times they're just signaling to the market. They're not signaling to their people. And I'm not, this is who they are. They're signaling to the market. And sometimes what we see on the outward signals to the market isn't even actually what's going on, but it's the message to the potential workforce that could come there. So that's on the CEOs. But internally, we have to be like, okay, how can I support my colleague that's right next to me in my cubicle here? How can I support my team in a way that we weren't able to? So when I started talking to this colleague years ago, I said, do people know how you can contribute and support them? And then how do you talk about how you support each other? And she spent a lot of time listening, a lot of time engaging. And over time, her approach to what at the time it was drug safety that she was working on, that became the approach. And it saved the company money because it reduced timelines and it got projects kind of moved out of the pipeline faster because she just exercised not just her technical acumen, because she was amazing at that, but she wasn't amazing at asking the right questions, engaging people, letting people know that she's invested in their outcomes as much as she is her own and that theirs are interdependent. She spent a lot of time on that and it made the shift. So I think my point in that is at the times that we're in now, there's going to be some crazy stuff that comes out of the mouths of politicians, the mouths of individuals. But I think by and large, most people want to just be, engage for who they are and do good work and go home and take care of their lives and feel good about that work. And I think we can only do that by coming closer together rather than using an ideological stance, whether it's on one pole or the other, to move us further away from each other. Like, we have to kind of put our heels in and say, I don't agree with you on a lot of things, but on this mission of this organization, I agree. And how can we make that happen together and allow us both to do our best work, or all of us, this team, to do our best work, or the organization to do so. So I wish I can say I have some pessimism. I do, but I also have seen it, and I'm working with organizations still in this DEI thing, where somebody asked me the other day if I still had a job. I still do.
More important than ever
this
now.
DEI thing. I love how you term that.
And so I said, I believe inclusion can be a superpower. And when it is, and it's consistently done, you create a company that lasts. You don't just create if you've ever read any Amri B, it's not a puddle company, it's a river company. It's one that goes and is in an ecosystem. It builds on itself over time and it lasts. If you want that, then engage with your colleagues like you care about them and help them do their best work. And most, I'd say, will respond in good faith.
I think you just had the mic drop moment there. So I think we're going to end it there. I think that we will see how these organizations deal with the political winds as well as their employees, and how the employees stick it out or they'll walk with their hours.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We're going to have you back and see, maybe early next year, mid next year, see how things transpired and see where everything wound up.
I hope so, David. I would appreciate it. And Dwight, thank you all for the time. It was a delight.
The delight was ours. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. Dwight, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you all for being here. Take care and stay safe.
That was the HR Data Labs podcast. If you liked the episode, please subscribe. And if you know anyone that might like to hear it, please send it their way. Thank you for joining us this week, and stay tuned for our next episode. Stay safe.